deserts of Africa are the birthplace of the human mind. Humans are intimately linked to the sea. But how do we reach continents far across the oceans? It's a triumph science is only now starting to grasp. My name is Niobe Thompson. I'm an anthropologist. I want to know how our ancestors mastered the ocean world. Come with me on a journey across the seas and discover one of the miracles of our species. Humans evolved with their feet on the ground. So I'm fascinated by our incredible triumph over the seas. When did our species begin to live on the waves? How did some of us become water people? We think it all began in this place, the islands of the Philippines. In water markets like this one, most of the food comes from the sea, and so do the customers.
For early humans crossing the Asian continent, this should have been the end of the line. Southeast Asia, on the edge of the mighty Pacific Ocean, an impassable barrier to the further colonization of the planet. Except, it wasn't really a barrier. Instead, it was an opportunity, a life-giving gift.
Just like these Philippine islanders today, our ancestors found ways to live with the sea, and soon they were crossing it. The people of these islands are descended from some of the very earliest sea travelers. They colonized this watery world by making what might have been our species' first ocean crossing.
The seawater on our whole Earth was frozen to such extent that the sea level was about 120 meters lower than now. That means people could walk from Sumatra to East Java. And then there were channels of water around 30-40 kilometers wide.
The first sea journeys happened so long ago, we can only guess how.
From our present-day perspective, we cannot understand how early humans could have made it. Swimming? Very unlikely. You don't swim 40 kilometers with your whole family and your stone adze and your stone knife and your bow and arrow, etc. You don't do that. So they must have had some vessel.
So how did the first sea travelers cross the waves? There's no archaeological evidence of the earliest boats. But there is one place that might offer a clue. Papua New Guinea, the world's biggest tropical island. Humans reached its shores at least 50,000 years ago. Its rich cultures today open a window on the past. The immense Sepik River drains a tropical wilderness. Humans here live in a labyrinth of streams and swamps. They travel through it in dugout canoes. In this water world, the most dangerous animal is the crocodile. I've made the journey to witness a unique ritual. It happens so rarely and so deep in New Guinea's wilderness, very few outsiders have seen it. Led by their shaman, these warriors are dancing to awaken the crocodile spirit. They are making their boys into men. It's an initiation. The ritual mimics the snaking movement of the crocodile. They move between the open village and the secret space of the warrior society, the spirit house. In houses not far away, families are saying goodbye to their children. Dustin is 15 years old. Here, he is still considered a child. He lives in the world of women, on dry land, close to the village.
His father died when he's 7 years old. Too young and too small. He still worry about what will I see tomorrow morning. They don't know what's happening inside, but tomorrow they will be surprised. Initiation ceremony, every young boys, they need it. Ceremony crocodile, I think Yamuk will still continue until the earth is destroyed.
In Yamok, a man must know the rivers. He must become part human, part crocodile. The dancing goes on all through the night. Before dawn, Dustin is on his feet. At the spirit house, he bids his mother farewell.
The men have been dancing all night long, and now the boys are ready to go into the enclosure, but they have to fight their way in. And these men behind me will fight first, the boys will come after.
The last moments of childhood. The boys are battling their way in to the world of men. But the boys' struggle has only just begun. Dustin can bear this for only so long. But he knows he can't cry out. His courage now will mark him for life.
Why would these boys endure such an incredibly painful process? Well, think of it this way. They're becoming a water creature, a crocodile, the most dangerous animal in their environment. And when these people, their ancestors, came to New Guinea 40,000 years ago, they already were water people.
These boys will now rest and heal for 3 months. Their wounds will become patterns of power. They will emerge from the spirit house as men. The crocodile people today give us a glimpse of how the earliest human cultures may have adapted to life on the water. And the rivers of the Sepik are still a perfect home for what we believe is the earliest kind of boat, the dugout canoe. Over time, Papuans took the dugout to astonishing extremes. War canoes are extremely long and fast.
Papuans have very long dugouts, and that is a very clever idea because every sailor knows the longer your boat, the faster you travel. The Papuan peoples, as far as I know, never had any sailing boats because they did not venture into the sea. Those canoes will capsize.
So how did human pioneers cross the waves of an ocean? It turns out they could have done it with an ingenious invention. It's called an outrigger. On New Guinea's coast, outriggers are not hard to find.
How long does it take to adze out the canoe like this?
It takes 1 week.
Who's the carpenter of this boat?
As my elder brother. When we want to go out to the sea for fishing, we put this outrigger on. I can easily balance myself to pedal and make more faster to move.
This Stone Age technology is still so effective, it's everywhere in New Guinea today. But deep back in time, the outrigger triggered a revolutionary new phase in our human journey. Harvesting the winds of the sea. Off the shores of Papua New Guinea are countless tightly packed islands. Among the islands, our ancestors could perfect the art of sailing.
Near Oceania, the islands of New Guinea and the Bismarcks and the Solomons, this is not an area in which you tend to get typhoons, cyclones, because you're dealing with relatively short distances. Most of the islands were intervisible, so you see your target. So there'd be some impetus to make that crossing. If you're going to have a voyaging nursery, that's the place to have it.
Sailing evolved among the islands of Austronesia. But in the human journey, a time was coming when those skills would be tested. For the ocean next door was very different indeed. "15,000 kilometers wide, the Pacific Ocean covers 1/3 of the Earth's surface. Its islands are like grains of sand, scattered across a vast blue void. They are impossibly remote. Yet eventually, humans reached every one. But how we came to settle the islands of our greatest ocean is a mystery. A mystery that puzzled European sailors for centuries. It could be that once we reached the endless South Pacific, our migrations became a matter of chance. Perhaps we colonized the South Pacific by accident. It's the theory of accidental drifting. It comes from a visionary explorer and his spectacular, very nearly fatal experiment. I've come to Oslo to learn more about this unusual man. There's an entire museum devoted to his memory. In 1947, Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl set himself and a small crew adrift in the South Pacific. He was so determined to prove his theory, he nearly killed them all. But before they could sink, the prevailing winds and ocean currents carried his raft, the Kon-Tiki, 7,000 kilometers west from South America into Polynesia. The result? The idea that humans settled the Pacific by accident was embedded in the public imagination. Heyerdahl's son has agreed to meet me. I want to know what he thinks of his father's theory.
We talk about crossing these huge spaces. It seems impossible for a primitive people. What would he have said about that?
Well, the funny thing with my father was that I'm myself a traditional academic. I'm trained to collect samples, data, analyze it, and draw conclusions from what I've found. My father, he jumped to the conclusion first. He was in many ways also an artist with imagination. He started with the conclusion and worked his way backwards like a lawyer defending his suspect. Well, that's like shooting with a shotgun. You probably hit with some on your hail, but you may also make some misses.
See, to Heyerdahl, his main idea was those people came from South America, the Polynesians and those guys, because they were sitting in the wind with their boats and the wind would blow them to the northwest. A completely anthropocentric European idea.
As convincing as Heyerdahl's theory was, we now know the genetic origins of Pacific Islanders are in Asia.
If we look at the Polynesians and their other close relatives in Micronesia, there are fewer lineages and they share many of these genetic traits. Traces all the way back to Taiwan. So a lot of the genetic evidence that's emerged in the last 2 decades has helped to reinforce the picture that archaeology and linguistics have been giving us for quite a while.
So the question is, if the Polynesians didn't settle the South Pacific by accident, how did they do it on purpose? Did they have the skills? This is New Zealand, the home of archaeologist Jeff Irwin. He spent a lifetime trying to prove the first people of the South Pacific were master sailors. Irwin should know. He's a sailor himself.
Just watch for the luffing in the mainsail.
Yep.
In the South Pacific, the trade winds blow from the east. Thor Heyerdahl thought that was also the direction of human migration. But Irwin doesn't think settlers came with the wind.
It doesn't seem plausible that you would sail off into the wind. It's so much easier to sail with the wind.
People seem to have searched first in the direction from which they could most easily return. And the way of returning easiest is to go out against the prevailing wind and to have it on hand to come back with.
Exploring upwind might have been safer, but sailing into the wind isn't easy. Irwin's trying to teach me how it works.
Going through the wind?
Yeah, just slowly.
Yeah.
Don't have to rush.
Okay. 24, 15. There we go.
Win any races with that tech. We're a film crew, definitely not a yacht crew.
If this is hard in a racing yacht, what about the earliest Polynesian sailing canoes? What Irwin needs is hard evidence the Pacific was explored into the wind. In this lab at the University of Auckland, that's just what he hopes to get. It doesn't look like much, but this wind tunnel changed sailing. In 1995, New Zealand took home the America's Cup for the first time with a boat designed here. Now, they're testing a model of a Polynesian canoe. The question they're asking is, how close to the wind can it sail? Even at 40 degrees to the wind, the canoe is still driving forward. It shows that upwind exploration was possible, even with traditional canoes. Polynesians might have had the boats, but could they navigate the open seas? I've come to meet another scientist. Lisa Matiso-Smith uses genetics to reconstruct the settlement of the South Pacific.
Knowing how to sail upwind is a necessary piece of the puzzle, but it's not sufficient.
Yeah.
What about navigation? What about knowing how to find your way from one piece of land to another out of sight of land for days at a time?
The navigational skill and the knowledge and so forth is not something that is preserved archaeologically, but it's indicated archaeologically. And the speed of successful colonization shows that they had these skills. The dates for settlement, I mean, it's instantaneous, and that just can't be explained through anything but a very systematic voyaging strategy. What it tells us, this instantaneous kind of dispersal and continuous successful settlement from that point onwards, is that these people knew what they were doing. These people were prepared. They know where they're going, and they know what they need to survive when they get there.
We just didn't buy that idea. It took us a whole century, really, to come around to the facts that were staring us in the face.
You know, and yet we're finding that in so many things, you know, whether it comes to scientific discoveries or, you know, it's a very Eurocentric view. They crossed that boundary from the islands of invisibility near Oceania out into remote Oceania about 3,000 years ago. So within 300 years, they're like, they're out, and then they're out basically within 100 years as far as the edge of the Polynesian Triangle. Now, these are distances that are greater than the distance across Europe. The whole settlement of the Pacific really is something that's under-celebrated and undervalued in terms of representing, you know, the capabilities of these people thousands of years ago. They did an amazing thing.
Homo sapiens is a crazy animal. They do things which you don't believe are possible. And the population, the migration into the Pacific is one of those things. Against the prevailing wind, about 2/3 of the year, you have southeast monsoon. It blows northwest against where you come from. And still they did it.
If the Pacific was colonized by master navigators, are those skills still alive today? This boat and its Hawaiian crew are a kind of anthropological experiment. Since it was built 40 years ago, the Hokulea has sailed 250,000 kilometers, the traditional way, by the stars. The Hokulea is the reincarnation of their voyaging past. It's a story of courage, stamina, and skill that staggers belief. When humans reached Hawaii, they found a tropical paradise. But these islands were extremely remote, over 4,000 kilometers from the closest land. This may have been the most dangerous journey of discovery Polynesians ever took. Find land or die at sea. But in the Hawaii of today, that incredible story is all but forgotten.
By the 20th century, traditional sailing was dying in the Pacific. But then, in 1975, Hawaiians discovered a man called Maupealug, living on a tiny island in the most remote part of Micronesia. Mau was a po, a master navigator, one of the last still living who could sail across the Pacific without modern instruments or written maps. Mau was living proof that Polynesia was first colonized by master navigators, but he also brought the art of traditional sailing back from the brink of extinction.
Maupealug was one of a handful of navigators who still practice the ancient art of non-instrument navigation. The ability to use the rising and setting points of stars, being able to find your way across thousands of miles of ocean with no instruments, no charts, with no assistance at all from anything other than what he had memorized.
I've come to Hawaii just as the Hokulea is about to set sail on her most ambitious voyage ever, around the planet. And its master navigator is Kalepa Babayan. Kalepa was a student of Maupealug.
You have the external compass, which is made up of all the natural clues, the stars rising, stars setting, right? The moon, the planets, all rising from the one horizon, and then the wind and the ocean swells. The wind and the oceanic swells all come from the same horizon. They all come from the east. You just gotta internalize that rhythm and understand what direction they're coming from. We're very competent and very confident navigators. We know the Pacific real well. We know we're not going to sail off the edge of the earth, so yeah.
That's good to know.
Navigation is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. From the time you take the ropes or pull your anchor to the time you arrive at land, you're constantly navigating. You only know where you are by memorizing each and every second where the canoe has traveled. So you've got to be able to internalize the clock of the universe. I mean, if you talk to oceanic people, we know we didn't discover islands by accident. The ocean was their home. They left the safety of the shoreline and they discovered the stars.
Kalepa's crew will live on this open deck for months at a time. As they prepare the Hokulea, they are also preparing themselves. Sailing in a voyaging canoe from Hawaii to Tahiti is just as difficult now as it was a millennium ago. The ocean hasn't changed. Of the Hokulea and its crew, it will demand everything.
To set out in a canoe 1,000 years ago would have taken, in our view, an almost superhuman race of people to be able to endure that kind of voyage. People try to explain the diaspora of the Polynesian people, which surely was one of the greatest migrations in the history of humankind, from a kind of negative point of view. It must have been that there was starvation. It must have been that there was warfare. The ocean was always their road. Going to sea for a sea people is one of the most natural things that you can do.
It was thousands of years before humans at the edge of Asia deciphered the star maps and learned to sail the open ocean. Once they did, the South Pacific was theirs. But when did this ocean voyaging culture reach its limit? The Polynesians were extraordinary people, masters of the sea. But where did their journey end? Our best guess is here, Easter Island. As far as we know, in the colonization of the South Pacific, Easter Island was as far as humans could sail. After this, there is no land before South America. This island is so remote, its settlement was almost a boast, an extravagant statement of ocean mastery.
The Polynesians who settled here had sailed to the most isolated inhabitable speck of land on the planet, and then they transformed this volcanic rock of an island into a landscape full of their ancestors. These stone figures are actually tombstones, but only on Easter Island did they become enormous, impressive statues that depicted the person that was buried underneath. What happened is they became expressions of ego, of the power of an individual and a family, and so they became ever taller. They became phallic objects. And of course, that consumed all the resources of the island. Once that happened, things took a turn for the worse.
As statues covered the landscape, the trees disappeared. With the trees went the voyaging canoes. The population crashed. On Easter Island, ocean voyaging died away. At least, that was the theory. This is South America. I've come here because living on Chile's coast, there's an archaeologist making some remarkable discoveries. Dr. Ramirez Aliaga doesn't believe voyaging ended on Easter Island. He thinks it ended here, 4,000 kilometers further east. The proof? Something only a Polynesian could have left behind. Chickens.
These animals were strange, even strange for the Spaniards who found these animals in southern Chile. My idea was to look for DNA.
So you were able to prove that the chickens came here before Columbus ever set foot in the New World, and that these chickens really were Polynesian chickens.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, that is very solid evidence.
Some people discarded this evidence. They say it was no good, but they're wrong, absolutely wrong. I want you to see this fantastic material I found here in the basement.
So far, Polynesian chickens in South America haven't taken the world of science by storm. But the professor has made a new discovery that just might.
Did you know this was here?
I didn't know, but until a month ago.
So it was rediscovered?
Exactly. So this is very exciting.
And we know this is pre-Columbian. We know this is before any possible contact.
Absolutely.
These ancient human skeletons were first discovered in 1903 on Chile's coast. But for a century, they were lost. For Ramirez Aliaga, their rediscovery is a breakthrough.
Our skulls in South America, the Mapuche, is round. This is the pentagonal shape. It's another... I mean, not carrying, pulling with the head. You know.
Right.
Terrible. So they have muscles like a bull.
Right.
From here to the shoulders.
Right.
Very impressive. The Pacific tradition to work like this. How about the sweet potato?
The sweet potato, yeah, it's all over Polynesia.
And it's South American for sure. It's genetically South American. So who brought this sweet potato from South America to the center of the Pacific 1,000 years ago?
Polynesian chickens in the New World. New World sweet potatoes across the South Pacific. Even the discovery on the coast of Chile of human skeletons that look distinctly Polynesian. If this isn't proof enough that South Pacific voyagers came all the way here, then what is? Well, direct evidence. A trail of human DNA linking the South Pacific and the Americas. It turns out we may not have long to wait.
Back on Easter Island, a team of scientists is investigating a fascinating possibility. Until now, we believed the original population was entirely Polynesian. But if there ever was contact with the Americas, the DNA of living islanders might carry a genetic echo of that event. The man driving this research is Eske Willerslev, an evolutionary biologist at the University of Copenhagen. Eske is able to read a population's genetic history in its present-day DNA. Working with samples from living Easter Islanders, he's searching for a genetic signal their ancestors made it to the Americas. In other words, proof of contact.
To be honest, I think it was a long shot. Scientists claiming that there was contact, the other scientists was a little bit like laughing off, right? But I think it's very clear from the results that Polynesians and Native Americans have been in contact with each other, have admixed before Europeans came to those areas. These populations were much, much more mobile and had contact with each other, way back in history. The results are very clear, and you just have to accept somehow they got there.
What Eske has proven is that far earlier than Columbus, there was an ocean voyaging culture that stretched all the way to the Americas. The settlement of the South Pacific was a stunning achievement. Yet, much deeper in time, there were other migrations. When Polynesians reached South America, there were already people there. Instead of virgin lands, they discovered ancient civilizations. The ancestors of Native Americans have been in the New World since the Ice Age. But where did they come from? And how did they make the journey? 20,000 years ago, the last ice age trapped ocean water in massive glaciers. As the seas dropped, a path opened into the New World. We call it Beringia. Genetic evidence suggests the ancestors of Native Americans came from somewhere in Asia, perhaps Siberia. But no one is sure. No trace of humans has ever been discovered in Beringia. So where is the ancient homeland of the first peoples of the Americas? It turns out Eske Willerslev is pursuing this mystery as well. And he's come to Russia in search of clues. Eske's been cultivating a friendship with an archaeologist in St. Petersburg. That man has the keys to one of the world's biggest collections of ancient human remains.
Is this hair? What?
This hair.
Shit! Is it human hair?
I don't know. You're going to tell me that.
Yeah.
For a century, Russians have been finding ancient skeletons across Siberia. But for most of that time, they were locked away behind the Iron Curtain.
Russia here, it's unbelievable, the material. Why didn't I go here earlier? All that stuff that you dreamt about getting, right? I dreamt for years about getting, that each of them could tell a new mind-blowing story. What we should do, if it's okay with you, to take some compact bone, the tooth, and some hair.
Yeah. Okay.
With the Siberian bones, Eske's lab is able to produce genomes from both sides of Beringia. The research confirms what we've long suspected. The original homeland of Native Americans is in Siberia. But amazingly, these ancient Siberians also migrated into Europe.
I mean, it was mind-blowing. Who had guessed that somebody who looks like, you can say, who is a kind of a proto-European, if you want, was contributing 1/3 of the genome to Native American? And first I thought it was all contamination. I mean, because it was so different from what I expected. I mean, it just tells us how little we know about anything. I mean, all the time, I would say, when we get more data, humans were capable of many more things than we thought.
Born in Africa, humans were adapting to life in the Arctic. And the Arctic was the doorway to the Americas. But still, we don't know when these journeys took place. The last ice age may have opened the Bering Land Bridge, but it also froze the Arctic solid. Most scientists believe the ice age all but reversed the human colonization of the planet. But did it? The more we look behind the old Iron Curtain, the more we learn about the first Arctic humans. And the facts are astonishing.
Just how we adapted to the cold, we're only now beginning to understand. Most scientists still believe that modern humans moved to the Arctic when the planet heated up during the interglacial period. But hidden away in places like the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg is evidence that humans moved north very early and almost impossible to believe stayed through the Ice Age. The evidence is in that building.
Inside the old Winter Palace is a remarkable laboratory, and it holds the immense Siberian collections of Eske's partner, Vladimir Pitulka.
Очень приятно.
Привет.
Вас нашел.
Взаимно. Ну, слава богу. Помещение, лаборатория.
These cellars are brimming with finds from the first Arctic cultures. Until now, Western scientists hardly knew they existed. Discovered perfectly preserved in the permafrost, these artifacts are from the very earliest human Arctic cultures.
Великолепно. Великолепно.
But the biggest surprise of all is what Pitulka tells me next.
Вы мне сказали, что вы верите, что люди оставались на севере даже во время холодного века.
Я абсолютно убежден в том, что люди там находились, оказавшись на этой территории как минимум 28 тысяч лет тому назад, до начала последнего ледникового максимума.
А после этого мы все верим, что люди ушли из севера после этого, то что никаких...
А зачем бы они ушли оттуда?
Потому что холодно было.
Да ладно. Там было, ну, может быть, стало и холоднее, и, так сказать, менее комфортно.
Там был чем кушать, что ли?
Там сохранилось достаточно животных. Там по-прежнему сохранилось. Там сохранился мамонт, там жили плейстоценовые бизоны, плейстоценовые лошади. Там жил северный олень, жили хищники, которые употребляли всю эту фауну. Да? То есть там была кормовая база. Она отнюдь не была подвержена сплошному оледенению.
А мы это не понимаем или просто не помним.
То есть об этом часто забывают.
If Patuka is right, not even the Ice Age could halt our progress across the planet. For a species born in Africa, the human adaptation to the Arctic was an impressive achievement. And that adaptation was the key to the second half of the planet, the Americas. It was an Ice Age journey we once thought was impossible. Now we know humans found a way. The Bering Strait. Once, this was the Bering Land Bridge. Now, it's a part of Russia so isolated, the only way I can reach it is by bush plane from Alaska. There are no roads here, but then the Inuit of this coast are boat people. In the way these hunters live today, there may still be an echo of the earliest Beringians. I'm hoping to witness one of the most remarkable hunting traditions anywhere in the Arctic. Out in the Bering Strait, on remote islands beyond the reach of predators, there are massive nesting colonies. That's where the Inuit find their delicacy, the eggs of the thick-billed murre. Every spring, the murres lay their eggs in the millions. But getting to the islands before the eggs hatch, in the middle of the spring thaw, now that's the challenge. When the ice begins to break up, sea travel becomes impossible, except the traditional way, in a skin umiak, light enough to carry over the ice. What fascinates me is that an umiak is precisely the kind of boat the first Arctic sea people would have used. This is Kolya. He's the hunter who raids the nests. But first, we have to finish the boat.
Вот так. Up here in the Arctic, everything is precious, so all the wood in this frame has probably had several lives already. This could have been a door frame once, now it's about to go out to sea.
When the frame is ready, it's covered with a single walrus skin, shaved so thin it's almost transparent. What's remarkable about this kind of boat is that every part of it can be found in a completely treeless environment. Skin, driftwood, and bone. The last days of June. It's time. It's 20 kilometers of open sea. All of it choked with ice. With a metal boat, we'd be helpless. As the ice finally clears, we can see Bird Island on the horizon. It's a lung-busting climb to the top. But then, a view to stop the heart. This high up, I'm not taking any chances, which they find a little odd. Kolja has his own way of doing things.
Kolja here is the most experienced climber, and he's going to take me over the edge to show me how he gathers birds' eggs. He's got his rope, I've got mine, and we're going straight over that cliff. Here I go. I'm about 150 meters above the water. We've come down to the middle of the bird cliff, and Kolja's just behind me gathering eggs. I've got all this modern climbing equipment, but all he has is a dusty old rope he got from the bottom of the boat. But he seems quite confident.
Kolja knows the Murs will soon lay new eggs to replace the ones he's taking. And besides, just one egg is a meal. For Kolja and the boys, this harvest comes but once a year. He's not going to stop climbing until he drops. By sunset, our box is full. Enough for a midnight snack. A sign we've come just in time. Some of the eggs already contain chicks. But to the hunters, it's just meat of a different sort.
It's delicious. You know, the lengths these hunters go to have once in a year scrambled eggs in a pan, it's just amazing. But it makes me think, if they go to these lengths, what lengths our ancestors might have gone to, what oceans they might have crossed. I think we underestimate what they would have done.
The Inuit of the Bering Strait have inherited the frozen world of ancient Beringia. Like the Polynesians on the opposite side of this ocean, the Inuit know the sea is their home. In them, we can see back into our past, when we mastered the oceans and came to the end of the great human odyssey.
We have always had this idea that man back in time were primitive. What you really find out They were capable of amazing things. They are adventurous, just as we are today.
Our species has made a spectacular journey. From our humble origins in Africa to a global species. Clever and curious.
We evolved from someone like Lucy, probably, who was very closely tied to the natural world, to a species that all of a sudden is in charge of the Earth, of the globe.
A volatile world made us who we are, an animal of fantastic adaptability, but also the last of our kind. The only walking ape left. Yet I wonder what lies ahead. Our powerful mind got us this far, but are we clever enough for the changes to come? Or will the hominid line die out with us?
We're not indestructible. There are evolutionary dead ends. There are some species that don't survive.
We're the first species on the planet that has ever been aware of the possibility of its own extinction.
If you are not resourceful, you die.
We are the single most adaptable creature. We can sit on top of a rocket and shoot ourselves into space. We are incredibly adaptable. That is hopefully our salvation.
Our salvation could be in our very name. Homo sapiens, a human of the mind, the thinking ape.